take your mark.
Hello YouTube, StuckInAPool here, and today we've got some more Fire Emblem Heroes stuff for you. So I was planning on making another addition to the Redeeming Underrated Heroes video that I'd done earlier. I wanted to do a part 2, and I already picked out 4 heroes, and lo and behold, Intelligent Systems comes out and says, hey, we're going to put out some unique weapon refinements for some heroes, and 2 of the heroes that I was going to talk about were on the list of heroes getting updates. So I figured for this second part, I would look at exclusively heroes that are getting updates, because I figured if IS thinks they need a little love, maybe I can show them a little love too. So in this video I'm kind of going to put 2 things together. First I'm going to do like I did on my last video talking about underrated heroes. I'm just going to talk a little about their strengths and weaknesses, you know, what I think makes them good. Talk about a couple builds. With each hero I'm going to do 1 whale build, 1 budget build. And then after that I'm going to do a little speculation. So I'm going to kind of guess what I think those updates might bring, and with that update make kind of another build and talk about how they might utilize that weapon. So that part of the video is probably going to be outdated really fast as soon as they release the new update, because I'm probably going to be wrong on most of them. Looking at my track record of making predictions on things, I've been maybe a third of the time I've been right, so maybe some of it I'll get right, probably most of it I won't. And just like in the last video, I'm going to do 1 unit of each color, so we're just going to do 4. So given that there are like 6 different units getting refinable weapons that are red, I'm just going to pick 1. And the one that was originally on my list, and the one I'm going to talk about first, is Caeda. So Caeda, of course, is getting the wing sword, which sort of makes up for the disservice she was done in not getting her wing spear, so I guess this, you know, kind of makes up for it. So Caeda's main strengths are that she has high speed, and she has pretty good resistance, which, you know, is pretty typical of a Pegasus Knight. And her defense is actually, you can work with it. It's not good, but it's not too bad. She could take a hit as long as it's not from a really strong blue or from an archer. Also, as a flyer, she has more mobility and access to flyer buffs, as well as skills like guidance and flyer formation that are only available to flyers. And of course, Caeda's glaring weakness is her low attack. It's 25, which isn't the worst, but it's right there at the bottom in the area you don't want to be. So her main issue is going to be her damage output. And of course, as a flyer, she's weak to arrows, as they all are unless you have the Iode's shield. So one build that can kind of utilize Caeda's strengths if you have a lot of resources. First off, you can give her a slaying edge, accelerate her cooldown a little more, because she wants to take advantage of it as much as possible since her resistance is pretty good. You could use Iceberg and put out a lot of damage, which, like I said, she needs some help with that. And she's one of the few people I would actually advise giving an attack refinement. I know you get less overall value going with an attack refinement, but you can see even with a plus attack IV and attack refinement, she's still only sitting at 45. You could always go with speed. Her speed's pretty high, but it would keep her from getting doubled, and you might not need quicker post. And you could go with resistance if you just want to make her do a little more damage with Iceberg. It'll only be like 1 damage, or 2 maybe, as well as taking a bit less damage from mages. And I gave her rally speed and defense just because she doesn't need defense, and it helps with arena points. Gave her Iceberg because, like I said, that's going to be her main source of damage. Gave her distant counter because being able to bait and kill mages is going to be one of her major strengths. I gave her guidance just because if you are using her on a mixed team, being able to carry armors around and letting someone step in between her and an enemy is going to help her survive a little better. And I gave her the defense ploy seal because, again, it'll just help her do a little more damage, and her resistance is high enough she'll get it off most of the time. So if you're on a bit more of a budget, here's a build you can use. Keep her native armor smasher upgraded, and again I used attack here. Reposition is great on flyers, so we'll give her that. Again, Iceberg because it's going to be her major source of damage. You can keep her native darting blow, that way she'll like always double, and this will make her more of a player phase, whereas the whale build was kind of oriented towards enemy phase. In that same vein, we gave her drag back so she can get to safety a little easier, and if she doesn't kill whatever she's fighting, then she'll drag it back towards her enemies, and they can kind of help her, you know, finish the job. And the C slot's kind of honestly up to you. I just put hone speed there. If she's on a flyer team, you could go with a flyer buff. You could use a ploy if you have one, or even a threaten attack or defense if you think you can put her next to an enemy and she can survive well. And we just kept the defense ploy seal because, I mean, that's just the thing everyone has access to. It may not be 3, but even if it's just 1, you're going to get a pretty good debuff off most of the time. So on to the speculation part. So she is obviously getting the wing sword. Since it's going to be a unique weapon, more than likely have 16 might, that's going to be my guess. So that on this plus attack minus HP Caeda will put her right over 50 with the help of Fury, which I gave her down here. And by the way, the builds that I made with the unique weapons are kind of halfway points between whale builds and budget builds. So if you have a lot of resources, you could probably build something better. And if you have less, then you could always make substitutions if you need to. So Winged Sword, I'm going to guess, is going to give her a small attack buff because she needs it. So we'll say attack +3 because a lot of weapons just come with a 3-point stat buff. And given that Wing Sphere was effective against armor and cavalry, and we just got Caeda, who has a tome that does the same thing, I think Winged Sword, we could logically say that it would make sense that it would do the same thing. So attack +3, effective against armor and cavalry. I mentioned Fury, and Desperation just a good option for her. With 40 speed, she'll double most of the time. And since she kind of wants to fight armors and cavalry, she's probably going to be taking a little damage. That plus the Fury chip damage will probably put her in Desperation range. So in most instances, she'll be able to double and not get hit back and probably kill, armors and cavalry if she needs to keep fighting them. So I think that would work pretty well together. And again, defensively, we're just keeping it there because it just makes sense. The next area we're going to talk about is Hinoka. And Hinoka is kind of right on the bubble for me on whether or not I felt like she was an underrated hero. She's really rare for one thing, and as far as most tier lists go, she's like in the bottom of the top half usually. So like, I believe she's in tier 3 of the 6 tiers on the Game Press tier list, I'm not sure. And she was like right in the middle of the other one too. Whatever. Anyway, she's pretty middle of the road. So I figured it was okay to put her on here. So Hinoka's strengths, for one thing, she's kind of an all-rounder, but she has actually pretty high attack. So that works pretty well with her native Brave Lance that she comes with. And like I said with Caeda, she is a flyer, so she has a bit better mobility and access to flyer buffs and skills. And in the same vein, she has a weakness to bows. That's her main weakness. And like I said, she is kind of an all-rounder, but both of her defenses are both okay and kind of low. 25, 24, she doesn't have the big resistance that a lot of Pegasus Knights do. And her other issue is her competition. Her main competition is Cordelia, who comes with a Brave Lance as well. And their stats are very similar. Cordelia just has 3 points better speed. So overall, Cordelia is usually going to be a better option. But there's definitely ways to take advantage of Hinoka, so let's look at some builds. So the first build is our Whale build. And we ditched the Brave Lance, and we've gone with the Deft Harpoon. So she's going to get that stat boost when she's at full health, and take that extra chip damage after her fight. So her attack's pretty high, like I said, so if she's plus attack with this setup, and if you give her Fury, which I gave her, she's going to hit 55, so she can actually make pretty good use of the Heavy Blade Seal, and do some good Gale Force shenanigans. So the whole premise of this build is she'll be able to initiate, kill her target, more than likely, if not, she's going to get another turn. Because as long as she's fighting a melee unit, she'll attack, get countered, and attack again. So that'll put her at 5 cooldown. She'll Gale Force will activate, and she can either get out, because between all her chip damage and the hit she's going to take, she'll probably be pretty low health, so she could use escape route. Or she can initiate and kill her target if she didn't kill him, as long as she's not going to get ambushed by someone else. And I gave her attack smoke just because I couldn't really think of anything better, to be honest. It'll just help weaken everyone else around if she is going to maybe take another hit, which isn't ideal because she'll probably die. Just an idea. So anyway, next we have a bit more of a budget build. It's using her native Brave Lance. In this set, she pretty much foregoes any possibility of quadding. Like I said, her speed's a little bit lower than Cordelia, so she can't really do that. So again, she's plus attack, minus HP. We gave her reposition because, like I said, it's just a good option on flyers. And this is also going to use Heavy Blade. We gave her Death Blow and Heavy Blade, so more than likely she'll probably be able to activate Heavy Blade and get Moonbow off on her second hit. So she'll probably be killing things most of the time. And I gave her Drag Back just because, like I mentioned before, either she'll get to safety or she'll pull an enemy back so her allies can help her kill it. And Threaten Attack, it'll help her survivability a little bit and also help her to get Heavy Blade procs off. So either way, win-win, even if threatens aren't all that great. So moving on to her unique weapon, she's going to get her own named spear, Hinoka Spear. So in Fates, it gave her a small defensive penalty. It was like 1 defense and resistance in exchange for 10 extra avoid. And since Heroes doesn't really have any type of avoid mechanics, the closest thing I could think of would be avoiding follow-ups. So my thought was she would it would still be a brave weapon, so it would still give her the 5 speed penalty, but it would be bumped up in might to 11 to match Alencia's sword, but it wouldn't get the speed bonus that hers has. And what it would do, it would increase the requirement for an enemy to double Hinoka from 5 to 10. So that way, when she engages, she doesn't have to worry as much about getting doubled on the return. So it'll help her be a little safer. So that's the best thing I thought of. So it won't help her avoid anything, but it'll help her it'll help prevent follow-up attacks that might kill her. So this set is pretty much similar to the one I talked about before, the budget build. It's gonna involve her hitting really hard, even harder with the Hinoka Spear over the Brave Spear. Hopefully proccing Heavy Blade for instant Moonbow and probably kill just whatever she's fighting. Our next unit is Raven. So Raven, like Hinoka, I wasn't initially thinking about it. He's pretty much in the same spot as her, kind of like the lower end of the upper half of most tier lists. He's honestly really good. He doesn't stand out enough to really be like considered like, you know, top tier. But honestly, I'll take any advantage I can to talk about Raven. He was one of my favorite characters in Blazing Blade, which was the first one I played, so I kind of fangirl over him. So Raven's strength comes in his offensive spread. He's got 34-35. And a lot of people will say, you know, Legion has a slightly better spread. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, so Legion's better. I disagree just because Raven can have IVs and merges, so that makes him just a little more valuable. On top of that, Raven comes with Brave Axe, which is, with his stat spread, a really good weapon for him, so I think he should, in most instances, keep it. A lot of whale builds you'll see have him with the Slaying Axe. The one I have does as well, just because, you know, it works pretty well. Personally, mine, I kept the Brave Axe, but it's honestly kind of up to you. So the weakness of Raven, of course, is that he has low defense and even lower resistance. In melee matchups, he'll do okay, but he'll probably come out with low health most of the time. If he gets attacked by a mage, he's probably done for. Luckily, his speed is high enough that he'll usually not get doubled. If you have a Brave Axe, it's a little more questionable. The other issue is he is an infantry unit that relies solely on engaging. And since his effective range is 2, that makes it kind of hard with all the good ranged units, like your Bravelins and Reinhardts out there, all your cavalry ranged units. It makes it a little hard for him to engage safely. And he doesn't have any access to emblem buffs like the Flyers did. So getting to the builds, we're going to start with our whale build, of course, and I mentioned him having Slaying Axe. And since he is kind of a speed demon, we are going to go ahead and refine it for speed. Helps him double a little better. At 41, I would say he has a pretty good chance to double. Gave him Rally Defense Resistance. Again, he's not going to want to be tanking. He'd rather help someone else tank, so that'll be good, and it'll give him lots of points. Gave him Luna. In most instances, he's going to be wanting to fight melee units. And if it's a squishy mage, he'll probably be able to kill him without Luna. So if he's fighting a melee unit, he'll proc Luna all the time. So I gave him Fury just because it's going to help all of his stats, particularly his attack and his speed, which he wants the most, but it'll also help him survive a little better. And it'll give him a little extra chip damage that might help activate Wrath a little easier. So he'll do a little extra damage with Luna. It'll be kind of overkill. I gave him Attack Smoke just because, you know, it's a good C-slot option for just about everyone. And since he's going to be kind of in the fray, it'll be less likely that whoever follows up after he kills his target won't kill him if he can't get like danced out or rescued out or whatever. And for his S slot, I would just give him something to boost his either attack or speed a little more. You know, your attack speed +3. Or if you want him to be a bit of a team player, you give him a Hone or a Spur. And Heavy Blade would be a good option, but not with this build since I have Wrath. So moving on to our budget build, it's going to stick with his native Brave Axe. I gave him Reposition because it's just always a good skill to have. And I went with Glimmer over Moonbow solely because I also kept Threat and Defense on him. So on any target with lower defense, Glimmer's going to beat Moonbow. So we're going to go with that. And I gave him Death Blow, so that synergizes with it a little better. Because this build, he doesn't have as high speed. You could go with a plus speed Raven, but even with that, unless you use Life and Death, which is a little more available now, he's going to have trouble quadding. So we're pretty much dedicated to all attack here. And I gave him Axe Breaker. There are probably better B-slot options. I just think this is good because a lot of the Axe units are a little bulkier, and it may take him a few more hits to take him down. And I gave him Quicken Pulse just because his attack, even with Death Blow, might not be quite enough to proc Heavy Blade. It means he'll only get the extra cooldown benefit once at the beginning of a fight, but you're a little safer for that fight that you're going to proc Glimmer. So this is a lot like the Hinoka build. It makes him kind of a two-hit wonder. It's like if he doesn't take the enemy down in 2 hits, then he's kind of just stuck. Can't do anything. So as for Raven's potential new refinement, he's getting the Basilicos. And much like Hinoka, since it's going to come from a Brave Axe, I'm going to assume it's still going to have the Brave effect. So we're going to say it's a Brave Axe with 11 might, and it still has the 5 speed penalty. And the extra effect that I believe it's going to have, and I've got kind of a weird twist of logic here, is that it's going to get the Regal Blade effect. So 2 attack and speed bonus if your enemy has 100% HP. My reasoning, Basilicos was wielded by Brendan at the end of Blazing Blade. Brendan is the father of Lloyd and Linus. In that same chapter, Linus has a Brave Sword. Lloyd has his Regal Blade, so it only makes sense that the Basilicos would be a combination of those two. So this is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say 11 might, 5 speed penalty, and attack and speed plus 2 if your enemy has full health. That way, basically, it's going to be the same as Alencia's sword, but if your enemy's at full health, it has 2 more attack, and if your enemy's not, then it has 2 less speed. So if that is the case, I think this would be a good build for him. So give him a rally skill. I just gave him plain old rally speed. You might want to give him speed and resistance, or defense and resistance, or something like that. We're going to keep Luna, because this build is going to be trying to quad if possible. And for that reason, we also gave him life and death. So if the enemy has full health, his attack spread is going to be 55-40. So a lot of times he will be able to quad and hit pretty hard. We gave him desperation so he can do it if he is hurt without taking any more damage, especially, and that's really good since he'll be really squishy with life and death. And we kept his native threat and defense. And that being the case, Luna might not be the best option. You might want to go with Glimmer, like I mentioned, or one of the attack-based boosts. But threat and defense is a good option, I think, for him, especially since he comes with it. And for his S slot, again, I would just give him a stat boost. Extra attack if you just want him to do more damage in the first 2 hits. You're not as worried about quadding. And extra speed if you want to ensure that he can quad. So the last unit we're going to talk about is Maid Mayhem, Miss Felicia. She was the other unit I was considering discussing. I was actually between her and Niles since they're so similar. But she has a bit more speed and resistance on her side, so she's a little more specialized with what she wants to do. So that is her strength, her great resistance and speed. And that works really well with her native special, Glacies. And based on the fact that she is a ranged unit, most of the time when she takes hits, it's going to be from magic sources, for the most part. Obviously, you have archers and dagger units to worry about. But she's going to want to fight mages, and she'll do well with her high resistance and speed. Her issue is her horrendous attack. It is tied for 3rd lowest in the game. It's 2 points away from being the lowest in the game. So she almost entirely relies on her special to output any damage. And also, like I mentioned with Raven, she's infantry. She can engage a little easier since she's ranged, but it's still a little hard for her, and she doesn't have any access to emblem buffs. So one build for her, so a bit more of a whale build. If you have some extra Halloween Sakuras laying around, you can give her a kitty paddle, because like I said, she wants to fight mages more than anything. Unfortunately, it has pretty low might, so you're going to need some way to increase her attack a little more. If she's plus attack, it's going to work well. Personally, I'd want her to be plus resistance, just because her special will do a little more, and she'll survive a little better. I gave her Iceberg just because it's easier to proc than Glacies is, and it's still an impressive 19 damage with this build. For her A slot, I gave her Swift Sparrow, and even with that 4 extra attack, her attack's only going to be at 35 with this build. So she's going to be relying on that special damage a lot. So honestly, you might be better off with Death Blow since her since her speed is already pretty good. Especially if you're going with a plus resistance instead of plus attack build like I have here. And Cancel Affinity is good for her because, like I said, she wants to be able to fight every mage, and Raven Triangle Adept mages are still pretty common in the area of Bolin. So Cancel Affinity is a good choice for her. So would, Guard or something like that. And for her C and S slot skills, I just gave her some ploys. She'll take a little less damage and do a little more. For a budget option for her, you can keep her Silver Dagger. Refine it for resistance, so her resistance will be through the roof. I gave her Reposition. Like I said, it's a good skill. We're going to go with Iceberg again, because with this instance, Silver Dagger has a bit more might. And so her attack, if she's plus attack, is actually pretty respectable if you give her like Fury. So in this case, she'll be doing okay damage, and Iceberg will just be a nice addition to it. And I gave her Vantage, because if she's going to be fighting multiple mages, more than likely she won't get Iceberg off the first fight, but she'll probably take a decent amount of damage, and with Fury, she'll probably be in range for Vantage. and whoever goes to attack her next is going to get hit with a hard iceberg first, and with threat and defense, it's going to hit him even harder. So that's kind of my thought there. And I gave her quick riposte just because a lot of mages are speedy. So at her 40 speed, she'll avoid doubles most of the time, but she may not get a double off. So quick riposte, with quick riposte, if she gets engaged on, she'll always double. So that's good. So moving on to her special weapon, she's obviously getting Felicia's plate. And since it's going to be a unique weapon, I'm going to say it has 14 might, more than likely. It needs to be high might because that's, like I said, what she needs more than anything to make her work. And since it's a dagger, I'm going to go ahead and say that it'll probably cause defense and resistance -6 after combat. Also, since in her game it was basically her preferred option over the Flame Shuriken, given that it can crit and activate skills, I think it'll have something to do with affecting her special. Since it was connected to her magic as well, I kind of want to connect it to her resistance stat. So I think this would be a good weapon to attach a heavy blade effect but for resistance. So I'm going to say like warding blade. I guess that kind of makes sense. So if her resistance is at least 1 higher, then she'll get an extra cooldown. And since she wants to use those specials as much as she can, that would be good for her. So if that is the case and she gets a debuff warding blade dagger, then I think this would be a good build for her. So give her her plate. Rally speed and defense, since she doesn't need defense. Glacies, because she's going to be getting cooldowns a lot easier on these specials. Gave her Fury to boost her resistance up a little more, as well as her speed and attack. Cancel Affinity, because again, she's going to be fighting a lot of mages, and those Raven Toe mages could give her trouble. Defense Ploy, because, again, it'll help her do a little more damage. And we have Attack +3 here, but a lot of things would honestly work in the S slot. Like I said, you could give her Attack Ploy, or you could give her something to increase her speed a little bit. There are a lot of good options there. So that's all my thoughts for these 4 units. We'll come to see soon how accurate I was on my predictions on their new weapons. But hopefully I gave you some interesting new ideas for builds for them, if they're characters you really like, or characters that broke your pity rate, or any of those things. So thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.